Panelists. I'm going to start recording us. And I say good evening and welcome. I am Dr. Cheryl Coleman, the founder of Abundant Living Health and Wellness Resulting Services. I am a nurse practitioner with about 30 years of experience and also a PhD in nursing. I'm so excited for our segment on this evening, a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and some of the work that I'm doing also in the community around caregiving. You know, caregiving is a billion-dollar industry, right? And this pandemic has caused that industry, I believe, to explode. We have what we call informal caregivers and formal caregivers. Formal caregivers are the ones like myself, those who are trained and have a medical background. But there are many people who are thrust into caregiving that are informal caregivers, taking care of their family members, some with friends. And so many people have found themselves in this space, in this place, and there's lots of education and support that's needed around it. So I'm excited that we have some amazing panelists that is going to give us this information and just share. And some of them have their own experiences. And so I can't wait. So let me get ready to introduce these amazing women, our panelists on tonight. The first one that I have the pleasure of introducing is Sharon P. Thomas, who is a wife, a mother of three, and she's a nana. I'm a Mima. She's a nana. She's a nana of three. That's absolutely beautiful. She's also a published author, a minister of the gospel. Guess what? Me too. We share that. Minister of the gospel and minister of health. Absolutely amazing. And so we thank God for that. She's also a seasoned caregiver. She's a licensed practical nurse. She's certified as an assisted living administrator, integrative mental health practitioner, amazing, and a dementia practitioner. Awesome, awesome. We can't wait to hear from her. Sharon is no stranger to the healthcare industry. She has over 35 years of experience. This includes serving as an administrator, training in a 350-bed nursing home, and caring for seniors and hospice patients in the private sector as a licensed practical nurse. Sharon's caregiving experience with dementia patients took on a personal, there's nothing like our own personal stories and journeys, dimension for over 12 years, caring for her 94-year-old aunt and her mom, who passed away in January of 2022. And we send lots of love and peace to you, our dear sister, in that transition. Sharon is the founder and the director of SonRise, Assisted Living and Health Foundation based in Lauderdale Lakes. And we're going to hear from her shortly. As we're waiting to hear from her, we got another amazing woman. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you about her, and then we're going to dive right in. This is Belinda Paulicin. I hope I said it right. Is the Vice President of Programs and Services at Gilda's Club, South Florida, an affiliate of the Cancer Support Community, the world's largest provider of professionally led cancer support. Dr. Paulicin holds a doctorate in social work, as well as being a licensed clinical social worker. Dr. Paulicin has more than 20 years of experience developing trauma-focused interventions, powerful, and advocating for children and families. Dr. Paulicin is a published author as well in child development and mental health. The Cancer Support Community recently awarded Dr. Paulicin with 2 national recognitions for the Gilda's Club South Florida Health Equity Initiative and distress screening for Spanish-speaking community. In honor of her achievements, she was also selected as one of the 12 community foundations of Broward Hidden Heroes of the Pandemic. Thank God for our heroes in the pandemic. Dr. Paulicin is passionate about serving the underserved populations and building partnerships to address marginalized community challenges. These are 2 amazing panelists on tonight. And as we are here in this space looking at emotional well-being of caregivers, Dr. Paulicin, can you share with us your thoughts around the emotional stressors of caregiving?
Thank you for having me this evening, and I'm glad to be able to share this space with you to talk about a very important topic. And as it relates to caregivers, can I start with just a quote what Rosalind Carter says? She says, "There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers and those who will be caregivers and those who will need caregivers. So in other words, there's some part and some time in your life where you might find yourself in that role. And so when it comes to that emotional health aspect of it, I always look at the fact that caregivers are really at risk for some of the common areas of depression, and really should be aware and what those symptoms are and really be able to identify if that's a concern that's coming up and seek the appropriate help. And also anxiety. When we do, as part of our cancer, my work in cancer, we have a registry that really looks at the experiences of individuals impacted by cancer. And when we looked at the data for caregivers, some of their very, very top concerns were about worrying about how to provide emotional support for the ones that they're taking care of. And so one of the things is that, when you are in that place of caregiver, you might be able to recognize their emotional needs, but you must be able to recognize your own emotional needs. So that's one of the very first things, right? It's kind of like that saying that you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can actually be of help. So just recognizing that that piece, of that, some of the things that are normal to experience, but if they get to be to that level of impacting one's function and impacting one's life, that it's important to seek that help.
Thank you so much for sharing and just introducing some of those things that our caregivers face. And we're absolutely grateful for that. And as Ms. Thomas comes forward to maybe share in the same vein some of her thoughts around that, but also to include some of her own experience, as she's led to share with us at this time. You're on mute.
Good evening, everyone. How long you said this is supposed to take? Because it's a journey, isn't it? Thank you so much for having me present on this very important topic. I have been, as you heard my bio, I ditto to Dr. Belinda I was going to use that same quote from Rosalind Carter. So we're on the same ball field. But I want to say that the journey is not an easy journey, and it is a journey, regardless of whether you're doing it professionally or for your loved ones inwardly. I had a journey with my mom for over 12 years with starting point of dementia and went all the way to the end when she passed in January of this year. It was not easy. And I must say that to you because a lot of us, minorities, are not prepared to even talk about, have the conversation with our loved ones about what would their needs be, all these different things that interplay into when they get older, or even what their needs would be. So if we're not having the conversation in the beginning, then when the illness starts to get a bit more, then they get lost in the shuffle. They cannot join the conversation. And so you're fending in order to say, what would this loved one need? And in the same breath, stop taking care of yourself the way you ought to. It's so important that when you do that, that you have a support team. A support team is so important. I am so grateful that I have 2 other sisters and a brother that was engaged in that support team. It's important for you to have friends as well. That support team could come from a spiritual guide, but someone to reach out to in order to let you know you're not in this by yourself. I'm one that when I get in something, I get it all the way, not realizing that I'm not taking those 5 minutes breaks for myself, not realizing that I am not journaling my experience, as well as what are the hobbies that you used to like to do, Sharon? Come on, have those moments for yourself, because if not, you're so entangled, whether professionally or otherwise, you're not taking those moments to pause and to breathe. And when family members come in, they will try to decide what has already disarrange what has already been arranged for you. So you have to be strong. I know my spiritual journey has helped me through this caregiving journey. It really has, because I found time to meditate, and to be one with my creator. That helped me to be still. And that is so important. Whether or not during the COVID time, I know we were isolated from a lot of friends and family. So that created also an emotional strain, which could lead to burnout. And when we become burned out, we get isolated as well. We turn inwardly, as you know, Dr. Belinda, we start to internalize things we are not expressing. So that support group is so important. Say, girl, you need a pause time. Come on, let's have a cup of coffee. Let's talk about it. It is so important, Dr. Cheryl, very important.
Awesome. And you're absolutely right. It's definitely definitely important. And hearing your snippet of your journey, which I know that when there's possibly another space and time that you could share, a lot of caregivers would definitely benefit. And so we look forward, and we believe Live Healthy Miami Gardens, we're going to find another way for you to really be able to dive down into that.
Right.
In addition to that, and you just shared a little bit of the tidbits as we talk about the emotional strain and family dynamics that come along with it. Dr. Paulicin, and I did hear you say some of those things, but what are some of the tips just in the few moments that we have? I think we only got like 9 minutes left. So I told anybody if there was a question or a comment, if they can put it in the chat, that you might add on to that we could give to caregivers.
Yeah, one of the things is that the power of support groups. I know at Gilda's Club, South Florida, we have a support group for caregivers who are impacted by cancer, because I do believe that hearing from other caregivers is very powerful. So really finding support, not just through your family and friends, but other caregivers, because they also understand, the thing with caregivers, there's that space of feeling good about being able to help, but there's also frustrations that come with it sometimes that you may not feel comfortable expressing to anybody else. No one else will get it other than those who are in your place. And so really good support from other caregivers, it's really very powerful. And it can be very empowering too. When taking care of your own health, again, caregivers are really good at being in touch and keeping their pulse on what's happening with the ones they're taking care of, but not always sometimes on ourselves. And that's why having another person who's a caregiver could also be helpful, because sometimes they almost mirror it back to you. But when you find yourself leaving the things that really you used to enjoy, that used to balance you or give you a space of peace or enjoyment, and you find yourself pulling more away from that might be an indication to start looking. Now with caregiving, it's juggling a lot of things, right? Your schedules sometimes get taken over by what's happening, but it's really being able to carve out and understanding that if I wake up in the morning and I put myself also as a priority, I'm better able to take care of everything else that's to come. And oftentimes we're reactive to what's happening in our lives and the lives of the ones that we're taking care of, right? The other thing is, as caregivers, being an advocate becomes a role that sometimes people never thought or expected that they would be involved in. And that can be overwhelming. And that's where, again, that support, coming up with strategies, things that you need to write down, being organized, having that very open conversation, all of that will alleviate some of the kind of over processing that can happen. So finding those types of techniques. And remember, caregiving is hard work. It is work. And needing to have respite is important. But also give credit to yourself for doing the best that you can do. Sometimes we can engage in self-battering, I could do more, I should do this, or I couldn't do this. And when we engage in that self-talk, and that really what we're doing is literally slapping ourselves and really making ourselves feel really overly responsible sometimes. And that could really impact our mood and the way we will feel. So really taking some time to say to yourself, you know what, I am doing the best that I can. There's certain things that you also have to recognize. What do you have control over? And what is just life, and there is no control other than how you respond. And so it's really important. As myself, I've been in the caretaker role many times. And very most recently, I wanted to donate my kidney to my daughter. And seeing someone that you care about go through that process, but also learning so much about kidney disease and what an advocate and all the health disparities that were going on, and really being able to see that. And as a caregiver, sometimes you can be frustrated dealing with the health system. Recognize that, and that's why the support groups are good too, or finding support for other caregivers, because you will be able to see that you're not alone. And tap into resources that might be around you in that group as well.
Dr. Cheryl, just want to add to that. While I was going through, I do a weekly Tuesday tips for caregivers. And I did it during the time that I was experiencing going through the deep part with my mom towards the end. And one of the tips were the physical tip: rest, take a swim, dance, work in the garden, and walk around the block. How do we mentally meditate, pray, or journal? Emotional relationships, spend time with those close friends. Zoom family meetings, reach out to family and friends, or regular chat, call in, just to keep your mental and emotional relationship together. Spiritually, you could do weekly service or join, as Dr. Belinda said, encouraging group, support group. I also put out another one: find a time to relax. Listen to your favorite music. Sometimes we get caught up that we forget. Listen, put it on. Read or work on a hobby. Schedule your time. That's why I said having those conversations, we end up putting a plan together, which is very important. Once you start doing that conversation, who's going to take mom or daughter to the doctor? Who can give me that respite time now that I need? Practice saying no. If you can't say no right now, when you get into that caregiving space, it's very hard to say no. Do something, mindfulness exercises. I do a virtual caregiver summit every year. It's in its third year. I had a yoga person come in and just had people breathe. We have not practiced breathing, taking those moments, whether it's 5 minutes, let me step away and not be fully engaged. When you find yourself in a burnt out capacity, You find it difficult coping with everyday tasks. You're not caring for yourself. You're not doing certain things. There may be sleep problems. You're not sleeping well at night. Overwhelming anxiety. I had to go and sit down with a therapist because there were some unresolved issues while I was caregiving concerning my mom, you know? And in order for me to fully be authentic and care for her, I had to deal with those deep down issues. So if you need to sit and speak with someone, most certainly do that, because it's emotional and mental health, wellness. Spending less time with your patients, that, you know, for those professionals, no, I'm not seeing that one today. You know what I mean? So also take care of yourself. You can't care for others unless you care for yourself and give yourself that what is needed. Eat healthy and balanced meals.
Amen. Amen, amen, amen. We love it. Our time is cut short. We only have about 57 seconds, but we're grateful for our panelists here on tonight. I want to connect with you, panelists. I have started my own virtual online support kit, Who Cares for the Caregiver? And I would love for you all to come as we highlight caregivers, educate them, and empower and equip them. And I'm also a partner of Live Healthy Miami Gardens, and I also sit on the council. So our time is winding down. It was so sweet, but we look forward to maybe hearing from more of our panelists. Dr. Paulicin, there's 25 seconds. If you want to say anything, we'll allow you to do that before we transition out.
Besides, thank you for being here. I would say that we are all caregivers, as the quote says at some point, but the best care is definitely to take care of yourself so you can be the best for those who you care for. And you can take care of yourself. There's support out there. So as my panel, my co-panelist said, you know, reach out for help, whether it's professional or natural supports that are around you.
All right. Blessings, everybody. We're moving back into the main session.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a part of our session.